So one of the amazing things about AI today is a lot of people who are below average on a lot of topics can be brought to average. So the whole world can be raised up. And is there enough energy available in the world? We know the answer to that. No. Humans are in control. When you're in control, you can actually stay in control. So how do you stay in control is a question. If you have a machine that actually sets its own objectives and then codes itself, then you don't know where that's going to take you. Potentially, you could argue that actually then humans serve the machine.
Meet Tiger Tyagarajan.
So one of the ways to ensure human civilization ends is to ensure that there is nothing to do. You're going to run into deep trouble. There has to be a motivation. There has to be a purpose. There has to be a goal. There has to be an objective. And humans will find purpose, will find work.
I'm plugged into it. This is like taking an influencer onto another level.
All these technologies, they're all open to misuse. That's the problem.
Former CEO and President of GENPACT will cover questions that keep the world's most powerful leaders awake at night.
Who has the red switch in their hands, where you just press the switch and the whole thing comes down?
Do you think the AI should have been released when it was on the web?
These are tough questions. These are not easy to answer, and we'll stumble our way through it as long as we don't destroy ourselves.
Wow, this gets complicated.
Human curiosity is still a superpower that humans have. And I think part of the journey that all of us have to undertake is to really turn that superpower on big time. I think the importance of true human relationships and trust is just going to go through the roof. Everything can look real, whereas it's actually not real. If you live your life constantly asking why, it's such an amazing life to live.
Tiger, let's talk about Sundar, the CEO of Alphabet. He said that AI is more important than electricity or fire. Do you agree with him?
No.
What?
We wouldn't exist in the way we are without the discovery of fire. Right? We wouldn't exist the way we are as a social group without fire. Our brains would not have developed without fire, because fire allowed food from animal-based food to be cooked. When you cook animal-based food, the body digests it faster. So it requires less energy for the body to digest animal food. So therefore, more energy is available for the brain to consume. The brain, I think if I remember right, is 1 or 2% of the mass of the body. The energy consumption of the brain is 20% of the total energy consumption of the body. That's the amount of energy needed to keep the brain running. That happens only because we eat cooked food because of fire. So, I don't think it's a competition between fire or electricity and AI. I think I agree with him. It's as big as those things. It's as game-changing as that. I just described the game-changing nature of fire. I think we all know the game-changing nature of electricity. AI is similarly game-changing. I wouldn't say, I don't agree with Sundar.
Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, he's putting together a $7 trillion venture. $7 trillion.
Yeah, I heard that.
To make chips in a factory. And I don't mean the fried type. We're talking about AI chips. Why is he doing that, Tiger?
So I don't know if he's doing that. I think what he said is, we should do that.
Yes.
And my view is that he was directionally talking about what potentially the world needs to do to be able to orchestrate the journey on AI and getting closer to generative AI. And that's a combination of how much chip capacity and power is needed, how much energy is needed, and the whole ecosystem coming together. And he said it's going to cost $7 trillion.
Yeah.
And can you really say that's exactly 7? No, you can't. Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. It's a big number. My reaction to what Sam Altman said was, he was really putting a challenge out there saying, are we clear that that's what it's going to take? Shouldn't we be doing it? Isn't there a way we can all come together to do it? The semiconductor industry in the world is give or take half $500 billion. And it's going to get to $1 trillion by, let's say, 2030. This is 7 times that.
Yes.
Right? So it's a use of a hyperbole and exaggeration in order to get attention for people to understand what it's going to take.
Wow.
Because we're soon going to exhaust data, we're going to soon going to exhaust energy. Not to talk about climate change.
No, we won't go there yet. Do you think the AI should have been released when it was on the web, when OpenAI released it? Because Google didn't release, they were the first AI company. They didn't let it out.
So that, it's a very complicated argument.
Research has shown that people are way less likely to buy from organizations. People buy from people who they know, like, and trust. If you are a leader in industry, if you are a founder or an entrepreneur, you will have a strong growth story. And the smartest investment that you can make with your time is to share that growth story. If you like the look of these podcasts and you would like to have the full studio and photography experience at our London-based studios, then reach out to me. You'll find the details in the description.
One argument says no, because the moment you release it on the web, then everyone has access to it. The genie's out of the bottle. Everyone does stuff with it. Therefore, it goes in various directions. Some of those directions are bad directions, and you can't stop it. And then there's competition between various people, including the bad people, the bad actors. And the hope is the good wins versus the bad, as I said. So what's the alternative? The alternative is you don't release it like that. Okay, why is that good? Here's the problem with that. There are 10 people in the world who have it. It's not released. And they continue to develop it and it's not released. No one else can develop it because it's not released. No one else has access to it. Only these 10 people have access to it. That to me is an equally bad world. Who's to say which is a better world? In general, I would argue that open is better. Why am I supposed to give it to 10 people whose hands it is in, who determine the fate of all of humanity? I believe that if you allow 8 billion people to determine the fate of humanity, the chances are slightly better. The world has actually suffered when it gave power to a few people. In the end, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So I would say, on the balance, releasing it to the open world was actually probably the only answer. Otherwise, it would have got trapped in the hands of a few people who then become masters of the world.
Do you think that there will be many AI companies like OpenAI, or do you actually think in the end, because it's so complex and expensive to build, that we'll end up with only a handful of the biggest AI companies?
No, so I'm not a technical expert on a number of these topics, so my answers will sound really ignorant and naive. But that has never prevented me from getting an answer. I believe there's got to be foundational stuff that will be built by a few companies. Foundational language built on Wikipedia, foundational infrastructure, battery technology, energy technology, compute technology, data consumption, etc., etc. There are going to be 1 billion companies who will build a lot of solutions that are very deep in different topics. And they'll all thrive. I might have 9 different AI helpers with me for 9 very important things for me. You might have 10, of which only 2 are common between us, and there are 8 others that you have something else that is important for you. And there are 1 billion to choose from. That's where I think the world is going to go. Value is going to be created economically by the few people, because scale is important at that foundational level, who had that scale and foundation. problem? Maybe. Because value is also going to get created by people who build really deep, unique solutions that a few people think it's important for them and they buy. That value creation is built on very specific data that they have. That's value. So in the world of AI, one of the big values is going to be special data that someone has. And that special data has value. Because the machine needs that special data to consume in order to produce the right answer. So whoever has special data about a topic actually has value. So the world of tomorrow is going to be those who have various kinds of data in various domains. And there are lots of people who have lots of data in different domains. And the more they have data in that domain, the more economic value and power they have in that domain. So there's going to be lots of masters in lots of domains with some infrastructure foundational masters, which we've always had. I mean, look at the enterprise today. Enterprise software at a foundational level, one can argue there are only a few out there who have that foundational strength of enterprise technology ownership. I mean, Microsoft is ubiquitous in so many enterprises.
Well, this is what I was thinking. So GPT and Microsoft, and they've got their alliance. And then you'll have Google, maybe with an alliance with Apple, which is, there's some discussions going on there. And then you'll have like an Amazon in alliance with another big company. And you might end up with 5 or 6 big tech giants, or maybe with some collaborations going on, right? And then we will build our personal AIs from the technologies that we buy from them. So I'm thinking, I think we'll end up with only like a handful of these giants.
At the foundational.
At the foundation, yeah.
But how's that any different from, if you're in London, aren't you dependent on 1 or 2 or 3 distributors of electricity? If you're in London, aren't you dependent on 4 or 5 telecom providers? Now, I think where you can then take that analogy forward is those utilities and those telecom providers have some degree of regulation from the government so that they don't misuse the fact that only 4 of them play or 5 of them play, etc. And I would expect at some point in time, governments to get engaged in regulating the broad infrastructure oligopoly that potentially could be there at that foundational level. Above the foundation, it's a free-for-all.
Do you know what I think? This is so funny. Because at that foundational level, I see the government buying from that foundational level so that they can, their AGI can help them to manage that foundational level. Does that make sense? I feel as though
It's the government buying electricity in order to manage the people who generate the electricity.
It's come full circle.
Yeah.
Wow, this gets complicated. How many times have you been asked the question, what is AI?
So many times. It's the way most conversations these days start and end.
Let's start with that definition then of what is AI and then what is intelligence?
Yeah, maybe in the reverse order. So what's intelligence? Intelligence, I guess the best way to describe it is the ability to predict the future. And the future could be the next second, the next minute, the next thing, based on past patterns, but also based on the way you feel emotionally, the senses that you experience, all 5 senses. So it's the interaction of those senses, the way that gets processed, compared to past pattern recognition, compared to the way your body reacts through emotion and through hormones and through chemicals, and then predict the future. That's the way to describe human or animal intelligence. And then you say, okay, so what's artificial intelligence? It's an attempt to try and create all of that through a machine, through silicon-based an endeavor. We made great progress, but I don't think they're there in terms of full human intelligence.
Human intelligence, how does it outpace AI?
At the moment.
at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, only at the moment.
So one is there is no emotion in the machine at the moment. There is no continuous sensing, though if you combine intelligence and a machine which is intelligent with a robot, and then you make the robot sense everything like a human does, you could get closer and closer to combining continuous sensing with the intelligence, which is, even better than today's artificial intelligence. And then I guess at some point in time, you can model emotions and get chemicals to get secreted, adrenaline and cortisol and, melatonin and so on. Because part of the way we humans react and predict is also because when you feel fear and you say, I want to go here, it's not only because of the brain recognizing things, it's because the body recognizes and makes you recognize even without you knowing about it. So I think there's still some way for machines to get there.
I don't know if it's a similar question, but how is human intelligence different then to AI?
It's partly the same question, but I would say it's much more adaptable is one statement.
At the moment.
Yeah. Very adaptable in terms of real time. The second difference I would say is take a child. How long does it take for a child to actually learn the meaning of words? I would think sometimes it's 1 or 2 data points about the meaning of a word and the child gets it. Okay. Machines don't learn with that little data yet. In fact, one of the challenges with GPT technology is that, the amount of information that is being consumed and data that is being consumed, it's going to exhaust all data in the world. Think about a child. The child doesn't consume all data to come to its ability to speak and comprehend and react and be intelligent. And the third, so difference number 1 is adaptability. Difference number 2 is the amount of data needed to learn really complex things. And difference number 3 is what I think a lot of people call transfer knowledge, which is you learn something in one arena and you encounter something completely different in another arena, but you take that learning and apply it here. So I think one way to give you the example is if you teach a child to open a door by turning a knob, and the child learns that after watching dad or mom a couple of times, that's it. However, you now present the child with a box. You don't have to tell the child anything. The child will open the box by turning a knob on the box. It transferred the learning about opening a door to opening a box. Machines still can't do that easily. Everything that I just described, humans are trying to teach the machine to actually do all of those things, adapt, learn with very little data, and transfer learning, all 3.
And it's struggling at the moment.
No, I'm not saying it's struggling. I just think progress is being made. The crazy thing, which ChatGPT showed us, is that progress can be made, and then
Yeah.
So the curve is so exponential that the day you say that it's not made much progress, the next day it could actually reach the sky, and you don't know.
Yeah, this is the crazy thing is I was doing my research and I should say, I know so little, even with the amount of research that I did for this podcast, because I was feeling very...
Don't worry, you're in the same boat as I am.
Oh no, I so doubted. That's so kind of you. But honestly, I was feeling seriously insecure about the lack of knowledge. And I'm like, I cannot believe I need to do this podcast with Tiger. And I need to come up with some seriously smart questions. Okay. I was feeling quite unsure of myself.
But actually, it's a good feeling to have, I'm telling you, because anyone who feels that they know actually anything these days is probably wrong, first of all. 2, has too much ego and hubris. 3, has stopped learning because the world is changing so rapidly that I would argue most people don't know most things because what they knew yesterday is no longer valid today. So therefore, the way to approach life is wake up in the morning and say, I actually don't know how the world is going to be today, and I'm going to learn.
Curious.
It doesn't matter how much you know, because what you knew may not be valid today, so you better learn.
You're quite the curious type. You've never lost that curiosity.
No, because I think it's human in any case, so you shouldn't. Over time, I think a lot of people push curiosity down in terms of hierarchy, because what takes over is I know everything, so why should I be curious? The moment I know everything comes in, curiosity just gets depressed completely.
The ego.
So you never ever allow that to happen. Yeah.
Well, I was very curious and I came across 10 stages in AI. And I thought, brilliant. I think we should start with these 10 stages just as an introduction. And so they'll go from basic to quite advanced, and they'll cover the past, present, and future as well. And oh my goodness, it gets crazy. But let's just go through them. I'll just give you the list.
I might not know all of them.
You may not. So this is going to be a test. Let's expose how much you know. So the first one is rule-based AI.
That's easy. Here's the rule. You do this, this will happen. You set the thermostat at this temperature. At that temperature, the thermostat either triggers heat or air conditioning. That's a rule. It's always the same. You can't tell the thermostat, depending on how you feel, set yourself up. You got to go and set. So you're setting the rule. So rule is externally imposed. And at that, basically it says, if this happens, then do this. That's a rule.
Oh, if and then that.
Yeah.
Okay, straightforward. And thermostat is an example.
It's a great example of that, yeah. Or the toaster.
Or the toaster. I like it.
Pops up.
And context-based AI.
You probably give it a little bit more context of in these situations. So you could actually make the thermostat a little bit more intelligent by saying, if I come into the room and I press a button, then it's me in the room. I don't like 70, I like 65. So then the thermostat, I'm talking Fahrenheit here. Then the thermostat resets itself to 65. So it's based on context. My son comes into the room and he prefers 62. He presses another button and the thermostat resets itself to 62. So depending on the context of the person, the environment, the situation, the rule changes. That's a way to think about it. So that's context-based. You're beginning to build some intelligence based on the situation, which is context.
Okay. Narrow AI.
That goes deeper. So you pick a topic and you build deep context. So an example of this would be, insurance claim comes in from, let's take the UK, comes in from outer London for a Prius, and it's a windshield broken, and it's a red Prius. So you go back to past pattern and say, if it's a red Prius, and if it's outer London, and if the windshield is broken, then you may want to check these following two things before paying the insurance claim. On the other hand, it's a black Prius. And you might say, actually, black Prius, the chances of fraud are much lower. Now, why does the machine do that? Because in the past, the data has shown that the probability of a fraud is higher when the claim comes in from an owner of a red Prius versus a black Prius. I don't want people owning red Priuses to feel upset. But it's all about, if that is true, I don't know if it's true, and if the past data shows that, then based on that deep understanding of that specific area, now you make that machine deal with a claim that comes in Michigan, in the US, for a Honda Accord, you might get a different answer. So therefore, the machine doesn't have that because it's not deep in that domain of an auto claim for a Honda Accord in the state of Michigan, because that data is not being fettered.
Oh, so it's a lot about feeding the data, pre-feed.
Yeah, you got to, the machine, the algorithm has to learn and get trained based on past data to recognize patterns. If you want really deep, narrow AI, which is by the way, it's one of the best ones to build for a lot of solutions these days. And it's made lots of progress. Lots of people have lots of solutions that have been built based on really deep, narrow AI, because you can feed it a lot of data in that narrow domain. And the person feeding the data understands the domain. Now, the danger there is you've got to make sure that you feed all kinds of data. If you feed data that doesn't have, let's call them edge cases, which is crazy stuff, then it'll never ever recognize crazy stuff. I mean, there's this whole, I don't know if you remember, but during one of the election cycles or the last couple of election cycles in the US, the algorithm was asked, who's going to be the next US president? Hey machine, here are the 10 candidates. And it kept giving an answer which was all male. It never gave an answer which is one of the women candidates, at that time Hillary Clinton, standing for elections, because past pattern never had a woman win an election for the president of the United States of America. So you got to be careful about what data you feed. The more your data doesn't have edgy cases, the more it'll never recognize it.
Reasoning AI.
It's one step further where, but it's a very important step, which is it says, here's the answer, but under these circumstances, I'm going to give a different answer. So it gives what's the objective, what's the goal, and then explain the answer. So you start moving into explanations of the answer. So if you ask a human, what's your prediction for where the sun is going to rise tomorrow morning? The chances are most people are going to say east. But if you say it, explain why, then hopefully some of them will be able to explain why are they saying it's going to rise in the east. Now, one answer could be, that's all I know because I've always lived my life and every day the sun has risen in the east. But another person would have a deeper explanation which is based on science. So the more you get into narrow AI, where the answer needs to be explained and you need to have a reasoning behind it, and that's often the application required in a regulated environment, in a business situation where not just the answer, but how you got the answer is important.
Give me an example.
So think about lending in a bank, and a small business applies for a £50,000 loan to buy a coffee machine. And it's a coffee shop. And let's say today, the bank risk manager looks at the application, does all their analysis, and might say yes or a no. If they say, no, I'm not going to lend you the money, then they have a reason and a rationale that they have to put down, because the regulator can ask the question, why didn't you lend this person this money? Or vice versa, they may say yes, and it turns out to be a bad loan later because the person doesn't repay. You can go back and check why this person said yes. You replace the person with the machine. It is possible for the machine to say yes or no based on past data without actually explaining the reason. More and more explanations are needed, particularly in regulated environments. I mean, if a customer is given no as an answer for a loan that they applied for, I think most customers would want to know, why did you say no? I want a reason. And you can't tell me that the machine said no.
Are we today at reasoning AI? Isn't it GPT?
No, ChatGPT cannot actually tell you, literally cannot tell you why it gave you the answer it gave you. It just can't. It can't. There are versions of technology that kind of does similar things where it actually allows you to trace back where it got the answer from. When Perplexity answers a question you ask, it tells you where it got the answer from. Therefore, the chances of hallucination may be lesser. So ChatGPT doesn't give you the basis on which it got the answer. It basically predicts the next word in a sequence of words.
So we are not quite, are we at reasoning AI today?
No, we are.
We are.
In a variety of domain areas, we are.
Okay.
But the reasoning also has to be kind of explained with the help of a human who puts the reasoning in, and then over time, reasoning becomes embedded in the AI.
Okay.
People talk about the human in the loop, which is the machine and the human together.
Yeah.
And there are many, many situations where the machine and the human together is better than just the machine. However, that's today. In many, many situations, the machine is actually getting better than the machine and the human, just because of speed and the ability to process so much data.
Have we passed the Turing test?
If you say, have we passed the Turing test as defined by Alan Turing at that time?
Define it first.
The very base level definition is and was, and I'm going to get this wrong, so pardon me for that. Can a machine say and do things and give an answer in a variety of situations that makes the human believe it's a human? So in a conversation, can actually the machine over a 30-minute conversation make the person believe that I'm actually talking to a human? You can argue the Turing test has been passed because the Turing test was basically meant to say the intelligence that is demonstrated matches human intelligence. The problem with that definition is that, like many things in the world, whatever you set as the goal today moves tomorrow and moves day after. So Turing test defined that way, one could argue, probably has been passed in many, many basic situations, but in many other situations, it's not been passed because the machine doesn't give you an answer that is convincing enough for you to say, this is actually a human. Particularly when you then incorporate what I talked about, which is transfer learning. You put the machine in a completely new situation, in a new environment with new data that it's never encountered before, it might give you the wrong answer. And that tells the person interacting with that machine that this is not a human.
Right.
And then, of course, if you ask the machine to exactly give the basis on which it gave the answer, the human will always be able to, right or wrong,
Yeah.
they will, the machine won't.
Artificial general intelligence. Things start getting quite interesting from here.
That to me is where it matches human intelligence. And it matches it based on those three examples I pointed out as human intelligence being different from machine intelligence today. Adaptability, the amount of data needed to train, and transfer learning. Just as three examples. I'm sure there are more things that need to be qualified for AGI to come through. But AGI basically says that anything that a human does, the machine can do.
Wow.
My view is that you really get to AGI only when you get past the threshold of being able to sense. Can the machine actually look at you and actually sense that you're stressed and you're not in a good mood, and therefore change the way I converse with you? How do I know that? I mean, I just watch you and empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is being able to put myself in your shoes and have the same feeling and emotion. And that feeling and emotion comes through because of bodily reactions, chemical reaction. So somehow, in my view, AGI must cross the threshold of being able to combine that kind of chemistry and biology-based intelligence along with actual machine intelligence, which is silicon-based.
Yeah. Have you heard of this technology, this site called Hume, Hume? It's so interesting. It's so funny. You'll talk to it and it will answer you back in quite a human, realistic, entertaining way. As it's listening to you ask the question, it will analyze, are you happy? Are you distressed? Are you just your feelings?
Oh, okay.
And you'll give you the level of it. Check it out. It's awesome.
Oh, there are lots of them actually like that.
Yeah?
Oh, no, but yeah. So in a call center environment, and these technologies actually have been available for quite some time, you have the machine, the software, listening to the conversation going on between the call center agent and the consumer, and, constantly changes the face. It shows smiley face to sad face, which basically says the customer is unhappy. The customer is unhappy. Do something.
Whilst they're on the call,
While they're on the call, real time.
they can sense the customer's feeling.
Well, they're listening to the conversation. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, this is listening. And then you can turn that into a sensing video emotions and, facial recognition software that actually can do the same thing. Now, how good is that? Probably not as good as a human. Yeah.
Today.
Now, here's the interesting thing about all these things that I talked about. If you take any capability, such as a person's ability to recognize emotion of the other person, you can plot how good a person is and they'll all fall in a normal distribution if you take 1 million people. There's some people who are really, really good, and there's some people who are not good at all. They may be good at something else. The interesting thing about today's algorithms and today's AI is that when you combine that with a human, you can move all the people who are not good at something to at least the average. So one of the amazing things about AI today, you don't need to get to AGI, is a lot of people who are below average on a lot of topics can be brought to average. So the whole world can be raised up to a much better level. And that can apply to, for example, are you good at speaking English? No, I'm terrible. Okay, here's a co-pilot sitting next to you, and the co-pilot is whispering in your ear, and I'm able to have a reasonably okay conversation. So from being terrible, I've become okay.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm absolutely amazing at English conversation, that co-pilot is not going to help me. So it takes below average performers on any topic and potentially has the opportunity to move everyone to average. So the ability to educate a couple of billion people on a topic and move them up, the ability to solve basic healthcare and move everyone to an average is just, unbelievable at almost zero cost.
No way. Okay. Super intelligent AI.
I think the real threshold of super intelligence is when the AI actually kind of codes itself, writes its own code, and then you're moving into potentially dangerous arena.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a human to set objectives. The real trick in this journey is how do you make sure that the objectives that the AI has are exactly the objectives that humans have or you have, and the goals and the values, and you never deviate from them. If you have a machine that actually sets its own objectives and then codes itself, then you don't know where that's going to take you. Potentially, you could argue that actually then humans serve the machine.
Humans serve the machine. This is why I'm saying it starts to get a bit crazy here. Okay, that was stage 6. Stage 7 is self-aware AI.
Yeah, I guess now, since you've reached super intelligence only at stage 6, I guess by the time you get to stage 10, it'll probably be,
It's crazy.
almost the designer of the world.
Literally, now we're at self-aware. It has more awareness. And then at stage 8, transcendent AI.
I guess it connects up everything in the world and the cosmos.
Yeah.
And the
then
universe.
It's quite funny because you mentioned cosmos. Yeah, stage 9 is cosmic AI. And the last stage is stage 10, godlike.
Oh, that's the design I said.
Yeah, exactly. So you're headed in the right direction. Once you got to godlike AI, it's all-knowing, all-powerful, and omnipresent. And we're talking about new universes, new realities. It's literally creating new species almost. It is quite unreal. But right now, we are at around about the stage 4 area, reasoning AI, and we're just before artificial general intelligence. And then we'll talk about that in a moment. Ray Kurzweil, he's a futurist, he's an investor, an author, speaker. He's made some astonishing predictions. By 2029, Ray says that AI will surpass human intelligence. In fact, Elon says sooner, but we'll come to him in a moment. What does he mean by surpass human intelligence?
I guess, I don't know specifically what he or Elon meant, but I would say for most people, it hits AGI.
Yeah.
Right. I have a problem with, I'm not Elon Musk, I'm not Kurzweil, they're very amazing people, but I don't know how you can say 2028 or 2029. Right. So, again, it's like $7 trillion. It's directional. It basically means it's coming fast, get ready, and get ready by actually being able to navigate the AI in the direction you want it to go. because you still are in control. Humans are in control. When you're in control, you can actually stay in control. So how do you stay in control is a question, and not give up control.
There's another prediction. So I said he made a couple. 2045, he's saying that humans will merge with the AI that they've created. And it's this concept that he's called the singularity. Do you know what he means by a technological singularity?
Yeah, the two different things. Let's talk first about merging. That I think is real. And I don't know about 2045. I don't understand people who actually have specific dates. Right? The merger of silicon-based intelligence, which is chips and so on, with biological intelligence, which is human, I think is going to happen. After all, Neuralink that Elon Musk's company is working on is putting chips into human brains. And at some point in time, one should be able to do that in a scaled way, at which point in time it's possible that the combination of everything I talked about in terms of the chemistry and biology and all of that, combined with the processing power that silicon has, with all the other data that you can feed it, can actually be a great combination. And that could be human evolution, where at some point in time, the evolution of the human species is actually a combo. But that's different from technological singularity. So the word singularity is really saying divide by zero. It's infinite. Technological singularity, I guess, would mean the curve of improvement or progress or multiplication reaches a point where it's multiplying by infinity. It's not like Moore's law, which doubles every year or doubles every whatever number of years.
Every 2 years, yeah.
It's maybe 1,000 times a year, maybe 1,000 times a second. And, if you plot a curve, it'll be, as I said, it'll be an exponential curve that's completely vertical. That's a singularity.
Yeah, so would you say that we've hit singularity in AI? No.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah. The reality is the world is already beginning to wonder if we have enough data. In fact, they're talking about creating proxy data and artificial data to feed the machine so that it can keep learning. Then there is the whole question of how much energy consumption is needed for these machines and AIs to run. And is there enough energy available in the world? We know the answer to that, no. So at the moment, I don't think we've hit technological singularity.
Just that the rate of innovation is just crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I think it's actually giving people anxiety. It's 100 years ago, maybe there were 7 innovations in a year, and now you've got multiple innovations in an hour. So yeah, the speed is phenomenal. And Musk, actually, we mentioned it before. So he believes that AGI will exceed collective intelligence. We know that there will be monster implications once it does arrive. I think Sam Altman says it will arrive at first and you won't even notice it. But then over time, it will go, like you said, it will just shoot up. But what would those monster implications be?
There are so many of them. Let's pick 2 that I talked about, which is health and education. The least progress that has been made by humans is understanding how the human body works. And when I say body, I'm meaning brain and body. We made great progress. We've attacked so many diseases, and yet we've not made progress at all. If you think about cardiovascular diseases, cancer, and Alzheimer's and dementia, just those 3, we made very little progress on being able to predict who's going to get it, when are they going to get it, who has a higher probability of getting it. We have a lot of theories. We have tested a lot of hypotheses. We've made progress on being able to do that better than before. But that's like saying, I knew 1, now I know 2, versus you should know 1 billion. So you know double of what you knew, but you're still so far away from 1 billion. So I think some of the biggest positive breakthroughs in the world using AI is going to come in healthcare. The ability to actually be able to take so much information that your body has very silently and continuously, and be able to then combine it with your genetic information that you have, and you have no say in it, you just have it. And the combination of those two things determine a prediction on what's going to happen to you next, and then next, and then next. And then maybe detect the fact that you at the age of 25 are showing signs that you will have higher probability of developing Alzheimer's at the age of 65 than your friend who probably is not going to develop Alzheimer's until 85.
So it could predict once you
Much
get...
better prediction. Because the reality is there are millions and billions of variables that determine actual health outcomes on a regular basis. People think you can go to a doctor and the doctor is supposed to diagnose your illness and be perfect. No. The doctor is basically saying there is a probability that you have higher chance that this is happening to you or will happen to you. Therefore, my recommendation is this treatment. Sometimes that turns out to be wrong, and then people blame the doctor. No. That is where medical science has progressed so far. Medical science is a probabilistic science. It's not a deterministic science.
So the AGI could say that you will most definitely...
No, AGI will also be probabilistic, except that your probabilities will not be now 75%, 60%. It might be 99.95%.
So almost.
Yeah, it's almost
Almost there.
Right.
So then you can mitigate, then you can work against it. Okay, so then you can actually work on it and avoid that illness.
No, and then in terms of actions, so what is diagnosis? Healthcare actions, again, have to be customized for every single individual in the world. That's not the way it is.
Today, no.
Today, healthcare is
Sick care.
have this and it applies to everyone. No, it doesn't apply to everyone. No, it actually doesn't apply to you because the side effects for you are going to, which is why you have in the label, side effects of medicines. But even that is broad. Don't have this with this, and if you have this, then don't have this medicine. It's still broad. It must combine with who you are, what your genetic code is, and what have you been doing for the last 30 years of your life. Then I can tell you with a higher degree of probability that this particular medicine that is fine-tuned for you is the best medicine. And by the way, that medicine is only for you. So every person's medicine is customized for that person. And then you take it to the field of education. I think education is one of those sectors that will turn on its head, actually, as we speak. And unfortunately, it won't that quickly because education is a slow-changing world. People in academia don't change that fast. But I think they have to.
So you're saying that education will not keep up with the changes?
I would argue, why do we need to learn anything? Meaning that is considered knowledge. You started the discussion saying that you spend time studying and building knowledge in the space of AI. You didn't have that prior beyond a point, but you learned it.
And my brain will never be the same again.
You self-learned that.
Yes.
So why do we have to learn in depth a topic unless we're going to use it now? So I would argue education has to change to some foundational knowledge that is required. Why is it required? Because it prepares you to learn. So the basis of education must change to preparing people to learn, because life must be about daily learning. Because there is no such thing as you go to college and you learn something, school and college, and you learn something for 22 years of your life, and then you apply it for the next 40 years of your life. No. No. Within the first year, the world has changed. So what you learned in school and college is actually not relevant anymore. It's changed. In fact, there's a huge problem. The problem is, since you think it's relevant and you will apply it, you're going to run into deep trouble. If you didn't have that knowledge, you at least knew you don't have that knowledge. So you'll be more careful, and the chances are you'll not run into that much trouble because you'll be learning because you know you don't know. The problem with education is it attempts to teach you knowledge, whereas it should attempt to teach you how do you gather knowledge, number one. Number two, what knowledge should you gather? What are the questions to ask? What problems do you want to solve in the world? What values do you want to have? What objectives do you want to achieve? What goals you want to achieve? That's what education should teach you. And then how do you relate to people emotionally? How do you build relationships with people? How do you explore? That's what education, formal education, should teach you. But that's foundational. And then you go out into the world, and then you use all of that. You use it to learn, you use it to teach yourself, you use it to experiment. That experiment gives you feedback. That feedback then is used to learn again. And the machine is sitting next to you to help it. That to me is a very different life where it's not 22 years of learning, 40 years of what I would call exploitation of that learning to deliver value to work. It's 22 years, or maybe it's not 22 years, maybe it's only 18 years of foundational how to learn learning, how to explore learning, making you curious so that you don't lose it, helping you to build relationships, and then in the world outside, you use it to deliver value, maybe for a year, and then you go back to learn again for 6 months, 3 months, and then you come back and work again. So work is going to be work, learn, forever. And that's a very different way of living.
Forever. See, this is interesting. You said forever, but AGI, again, basic understanding on my side, if it gets to a point where it surpasses human intelligence...
AGI doesn't surpass human intelligence. Super intelligence does.
Oh, I see. Okay, so AGI is still requiring us to have critical thinking.
So the question is, how do you have AI get to the point where it actually becomes a great friend of the human and helps the human progress, but never gets above?
Because that would be super intelligence. Great one.
And two, how do you make sure that AGI is pointed exactly in the direction that you want to go in? Which means your objectives, your values is where AGI is going to help you and take you.
Elon Musk and his XAI, he's talked about trying to inject curiosity and create a truth-seeking AI.
Right? So this becomes interesting because he's saying that we need to raise a godlike, intelligent AI. And he's using his words, I've thought a lot about AI safety. And my ultimate conclusion is that the best way to achieve AI safety is to grow the AI to be really truthful. Don't force it to lie, even if the truth is unpleasant. So AI is like a super genius, godlike intelligence. It matters how you raise this kid. And it's interesting how he uses the word kid, because Mo Gaudat has a similar idea where he's saying, let's raise the AI like a parent, feed it, guide it, nurture it to take humanity. Its focus should be to nurture and look after humanity. So, okay, these two geniuses are saying that we need to almost take a parental role when it comes to aligning AI. And that word alignment is something that's used a lot in the AI space to grow the super intelligent AGI. So expand on that. How do we do that?
It's actually, the word used is correct, parenting.
Right.
how do you, I think most parents would actually spend time inculcating their values into their children. And how do they do that? They show, they tell, they explain, they allow the kid to experiment and then sit down and explain right or wrong and why. So the parent basically establishes guardrails. The parent establishes the right and wrong values. The parent establishes good goals to have, bad goals to have, and creates a continuous feedback loop so that continuously the child progresses in the direction based on the guardrails that the parent has set up. And there's continuous nurturing in that journey. You've got to treat the AI as a child. By definition, if you ignore it, and if you don't correct it, and if you don't align it, it can go off in the wrong direction, and that can happen. There is going to be bad stuff, because just as the parent and child, if you have a parent with the wrong values and the wrong objectives and is destructive, then the parenting that is done and transferred is also potentially of that kind. So AI in the hands of the wrong human can lead to complete chaos and destruction and the end of humanity. It's possible.
It's scary. So Immad Mushtar, which is the former CEO of Stability.ai, he talks about this garbage in, garbage out. Okay, so, but if we go back to the parental analogy, your parents brought you up in a certain way, aligned to their values. My parents brought me up in a certain way. We, I'm sure, have both got good upbringings, but not the same. It's in alignment with their values. So whose values are we to follow?
There is no one correct values. It is so dependent on who you are, I agree. So one way to think about it is that the AI can be tuned to the values that you want. So just as the child is growing up, depending on the environment and depending on the parent, by the way, it's not just the parent, it's other people's influence, it's teachers, it's friends, it's all kinds of, and then who has more influence and more power in that process for a particular child. So it's not, when we talk about parent, it's not just the parent, it's lots of inputs into that guardrail, into the values. It's all different. So one argument would be allow customized setting of the values of the machine to be set by me. So I set my values into that machine, and then the machine does stuff that are based on my values. The machine that you use, you set it to match your values. So now think about a world with 8 billion people, and there are 8 billion AI bots.
Yeah.
So you have 16 billion citizens.
Yeah.
Today, you can divide up 8 billion people into all kinds of values here, different people with different values, different cultures, etc. You can do the same thing with the bots. As long as there are people who are spending time on setting and customizing their AI to their values, it should work. Now, by definition, you have people with wrong values. So you will have bots and AI with similarly wrong values. The optimistic side of me says that in the end, over time, all such technology revolutions and evolutions that have had possibility to do good and bad, the good has always, won through trials and tribulations, but in the end won. I mean, take nuclear. So far, we haven't had, other than a couple of situations, a true nuclear disaster. We could.
Jeffrey Hinton, formerly leading Google AI, he's saying we've only got, I say only, but a sort of 10 to 20% chance of global disaster only. Sam Altman, he was saying that AGI, it'll probably come sooner than we all anticipate. And it won't change too much to start with, as I was saying earlier, but on the other side, he's saying that AGI, it could massively disrupt and wipe out capitalism, democracy, humanity. And he's saying, well, also, if we don't do it, well, someone else will. So it's a bit of a race as well. Now, how scared should we be about an unaligned AI?
I'm a big believer that being scared doesn't help you much. To the extent that it motivates you to do something, I think it's good. But beyond a point, just being scared and doing nothing doesn't generate anything. I think it just goes back to evolution, to almost the beginning of evolution, when as evolution started happening with very small organisms, the real step function in evolution happened when it was possible for one organism to actually eat another organism. So predation became a real evolutionary big step. The moment predation became a big step, you had a competition between a set of organisms that evolved in a manner to be able to make food of someone else, and those organisms evolving to escape being a food of someone else. So there was a constant battle of, I am going to be able to detect you and then kill you in the ocean because I can see X or Y. Well, you then had organisms that actually emitted electric signals that prevented the predatory organism from seeing the prey. So you had someone, the evolution take it to a point where actually it could actually detect the electricity and then detect the organism. So I think it's good to have competition between the prey and the predator. That's actually not bad. And then you have to say that evolution will allow the stronger, the fitter, all of that to win. But remember, evolution has a goal, very simple goal: reproduce. That's it. There's only one goal that evolution has: live long enough to reproduce. Basically, it's a combined goal: live long enough, and live long enough because you need to reproduce. That's it. So any characteristic that allowed that to happen thrived. So that's the way I would expect AI also to evolve. And I'm hoping that if you take the people involved in this, there's more good than bad. I'm generally a big believer that if you take the whole of humanity, there's more good than bad.
Immad was talking about garbage in, garbage out. What are we currently building the AI on?
Wikipedia.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Or social media conversations, which is
Garbage.
good and bad. The question is therefore, how do you make sure that it actually, ignores the bad and then uses the good? That's why alignment is important. That's why objectives are important. That's why goals are important. And that's why matching of values is important.
It sounded like you're saying each individual could have their own AI.
Yeah. I'm just hypothesizing that that's one direction, many directions this can go in. Of course, I would expect there was a time when I don't think our grandparents would have expected us to have this device that we are completely hooked onto for so many things. Now it's important to be able to use the device. If you don't know how to use the device, then you're not going to be as, capable of living in today's world as some other people. Accountants were looked at. There was a time when there was no Excel spreadsheet, there was no calculator. So when you wanted to hire an accountant, what did you check for? Can you add, subtract, multiply, and divide? Can you actually add, subtract, multiply, and divide numbers quickly with least mistakes. Because you got to count cash, you got to, tally the books, you got to tell me how much profit you made, you got to pay me, pay the supplier, etc. Those who did that fast were good at finance. So they were hired into accounting functions. So 50, 70 years back, if you were to hire someone into a finance job, accounting job, you actually gave them plus minus multiplication division tests where they would manually do it. Many of them could do it mentally. So they were the best accountants. The best accountants were considered to be people who are really good at math. Today, if you were to hire a finance person, you don't give them a math test. They could be actually pretty bad at math. They don't need to do that because they have this Excel spreadsheet and calculator. So you test for other things. Are you good at asking all the questions that tell you how to do the math? Are you able to convince someone based on the answer you got from the Excel spreadsheet that there is a certain decision to be taken? You now replace the Excel spreadsheet with AI. It's the same thing. We all do a bunch of things based on the way we do it so far, for which certain skills are needed. If there's going to be a machine sitting next to you that actually does some of those things, then I don't need to have those skills. I need to have the skill of being able to use the machine. Because the machine, first of all, never sleeps, is always on, never makes a mistake, and does it in 0.0001 seconds.
Problem is, with feeding it prompts on what we know and not beyond, because we don't know what we don't know.
That's a great point, which is the whole thing about curiosity, which is I still believe that at the moment, while a number of really smart people are trying to make algorithms and machines curious, the reality is human curiosity is still a superpower that humans have. And I think part of the journey that all of us have to undertake is to really turn that superpower on big time. Because that will be a different shaker. If everyone has the machine to help me do everything that I was doing, then what's different between me and the other person? How much do we use our superpower that the machine doesn't have? Because otherwise my machine is the same as his machine or her machine. My superpower is, let's say, being curious about XYZ. Who has a higher degree of superpower and use of the superpower is going to win more and is going to thrive more. And so one superpower I believe is curiosity, which is explore the unexplored. Understand, first of all, that there are lots of things you don't know.
You don't even know that you don't know.
And the only way you get to know that you actually don't know is by going into areas without any reason. Which means you got to live your life constantly asking questions. So part of the education process has to be, how do you make children, as they grow up into young adults, live their entire life asking questions? So I have this anecdote, you can call it an anecdote, you can call it a joke, that I use often with people I talk to, is if someone comes to me and tells me, Tiger, tomorrow morning the sun is going to rise in the west, what's going to be my reaction? What should be my reaction? What is normally going to be my reaction?
Why?
Yeah, the reaction that I would have normally, if someone comes to me and says, hey, Tiger, tomorrow morning the sun is going to rise in the west, it's going to say, no, that's BS.
You would say that.
I wouldn't say that normally. I shouldn't say that. But most of us would say that, saying no. First reaction is no. Second reaction is, you're kidding me. Third reaction is, you don't know anything. Fourth reaction is, that's BS. The sun always rises in the east. It will rise in the east tomorrow because it's always risen in the east. That's an old reaction. I think we got to find a way to change that reaction to, if someone comes and says the sun is going to rise in the west, your answer should be, really? Why do you say that? So you're asking a question. You're not giving a reaction. You're asking a question. Why do you say that? Because I always thought it rose in the east, but you're saying the west. Why? Explain to me. I need an explanation. I need to know why. What made you come to that conclusion? Because you might actually be right. I want to explore. So if you live your life constantly asking why, it's such an amazing life to live. And it's an amazing life even in the world of AI. Constantly ask why and explore and go into unexplored areas. Create knowledge when none exists today. Don't even know that it can exist. That's how fire was discovered, through the curiosity of some human sitting somewhere.
Going back to what Elon was saying then about feeding his AI with curiosity and truthfulness, this is something that I wanted to explore with you a little bit more, because he's saying we'll have AGI and I'm going to be injecting my AI with all this curiosity. And then you've got Immad saying, yeah, but we're feeding the AI with a lot of junk as well at the moment. So I like Elon's approach. I understand what Immad is saying. That's great, but what we're currently doing is feeding it too much junk. So, and it's only about a few years, if you take what Elon is saying as face value, and Ray as well, and we need to hurry up and start feeding it good stuff, the curiosity and great data and good values, and bringing it up like Mo was saying, like a child. How long do we have? Because what I'm thinking is that with AGI, if it's only 4 years away and AI is accelerating at a speed where it's going to go like what you said, like that.
Exponential curve.
Right. So at a point, if we're only about 4 years away, let's accept that, then we can literally only have a few years to get the good data into the AGI so that it can look after humanity. Do you think, basic level thinking here?
Yeah, I don't understand much good data versus bad data. Firewall only the good data and give it only good data. I don't know how to make that work. I don't think that is the way I would think about it. I would think about it in terms of all data.
Yeah.
Because who is supposed to decide good versus bad? I don't like that. What is good in one place could be bad in another place and vice versa. We already know that that's a problem in so many topics driven by culture and values. And then government and politicians consider whatever they say in their culture and their values as right, and someone else's culture and values as wrong. I disagree with that. So therefore, I don't think it's a question of only feed the good data and not the bad data, because that then means you need to know what is good and bad. I would say feed all the data.
What's all the data?
Whatever data is available, let the machine experience day-to-day living of a human of all kinds, good, bad, and ugly, from the perspective of one person, but good, bad, and ugly maybe the opposite way from the perspective of another person. The thing that I think it'll take some time for humans to get comfortable with is the following. Many decisions that humans make are not 0-1 decisions, which is it's 100%, this is the way to do it, this is right, this is deterministic. Most decisions that humans make are based on probabilities. So when there's a car being driven and the driver notices the traffic light maybe just beginning to get to the point that it'll change, then the driver may accelerate the car in order to get through the traffic light before the light changes. Another driver, more conservative, may say, actually, I don't think I can get through, so I'm going to slow down. So two people, same information. One person accelerates to get through, one person slows down because the person says, I'm not going to be able to get through. It's the same car. Right? Those two people took different decisions. In reality, Either the car gets through or doesn't get through, based on, right? And that might lead to an accident. That event means that there's some probability that was applied by each of these people who took a decision, and then the human is allowed to make an error. If you replace the drivers with two machines, the expectation is that the machine will always make the right decision. Wrong expectation. The machine is still making calculations based on probability. It's not a switch where every time you put the switch on, the light comes on. In an AI-driven world, you put the switch on, the light will come on most of the time. In fact, 1 billion times. But the 1,000,001st time, it might actually not come on. When a human does that, it's considered okay. When a machine does that, right now, the system doesn't allow that to happen. It doesn't pardon that software from making a mistake. Software is supposed to be perfect. So, for example, autopilots have been available to fly planes for I don't know how many years. I think it's about 20 years. There is no commercial jet that flies without a pilot. Why?
Interesting.
Because humans are not allowed it.
Self-driving cars?
I think it's going to be the same thing. I'm not so sure that self-driving cars is the only way the world will be. I think there's lots of steps to be taken there. Why is it that, by the way, it's actually easier. I can't fly a plane, but I'm going to call it easier. It's easier to fly a plane from point A to point B in terms of variables. I could be, by the way, completely wrong with what I'm saying. To drive a car has many, many more variables. And yet, by the way, autopilots work because the pilot sits and often autopilot takes over and flies the plane, lands the plane, takes off the plane, everything. And yet, we haven't said that this plane is going to go without the pilot. You need the pilot.
Right. So we've got Eric Schmidt saying, former CEO of Google, he believes that the US government is currently not prepared for handling AGI and what's to come. So let's talk about some of the challenges of having a militarization of AI. Scary space.
Similar to the use of, or nuclearization of, armed forces that happened many years ago. Why is that any different? It's the same. And so where did the world go with that? The world came close to being blown up many times, but didn't. The world used atomic bombs a couple of times to the detriment of, really tragic detriment of millions of people in that area. But fortunately, the world found a way to come together and create some rules. The world created rules around cloning. The world created rules around genetic, splicing to introduce variants of viruses. There are a few times when there's misbehavior and people who break rules. There are rogue states in nuclear. There will similarly be rogue states in AI. Hopefully, a majority of the world comes together and self-regulates itself through a sit-down negotiation, which will never get completed, just as nuclear negotiation really has never got completed. It keeps getting negotiated. And there'll always be an arms race, just as there's in nuclear. There'll be an arms race on AI being used in the military. And the way you combat AI for military use is by using AI for military defense. Just as the way you combat nuclear weapons is by having nuclear weapons that deter you So you have it, I also have it. You destroy me, well, 1 second later I destroy you. So both, it's mutual self-destruction. So hopefully the mutual self-destruction logic works here as well. Two problems. One, it hasn't been easy for an individual to actually get a nuclear weapon in hand. The reality is actually it has become easy for an individual to get a nuclear weapon in hand in the last, whatever, 10 odd years. And there are protocols that kind of prevent it from happening, such as you need uranium, you need plutonium, so let's control that. Similarly, I think we've got to find answers in the case of use of AI. I mean, it's already being used by drones. We are already in a world where AI is being used in drones, and that'll keep continuing. So drone versus drone. AI-driven drones versus AI-driven drones.
It's interesting. There was a simulation with in the US. I just heard about on the news the other day where the fighter jet was in combat with an AI-driven fighter jet. It didn't say who won. It just said it was a successful mission. They didn't say whether the AI jet won or not. But that's what we're facing, aren't we? Ultimately, I think we're both of the mindset where we're optimistic, right? I would love to see governments go buy from these foundational providers of AGI, which are going to be super intelligent and super sensitive and super sophisticated, and will just help them to make the right decisions.
Handing over power to really, really big brother government. That generally hasn't worked out right. History has shown us that governments and politicians, when they have access to power and absolute power, very rarely don't misuse it. It leads to corruption. So these are tough questions. These are not easy to answer, and we'll stumble our way through it as long as we don't destroy ourselves.
Well, see, I have another type of disorder to talk about, and that is deepfakes as well. All right. So we know that AI is creating, the whole world has seen this now, images, video, code, no code. It's all out there. It's all multimodal. And that's going to, and it's getting 1,000 times better every single year as well. So deepfakes are out. I think we're now living in a society whereas, Tiger, once upon a time, we could trust everything almost everything. If it's a video and we could see it, we're like, yeah, that's real. But now we're living in an age where the default is don't trust.
Yes.
And so what are we going to do? I think, how do we combat deepfakes? Or how do we use AI to manage deepfakes?
So one, you have to use AI to manage deepfakes. So AI helps you create deepfakes. AI is used to manage deepfakes. That's similar to cyber, where, AI is used to actually improve cyber attacks, and AI is used to defend cyber attacks. So same way. I think the importance, this actually teases out the importance, I talk about the importance of curiosity in humans as a truly differentiating superpower. The other one is relationships and trust. I think the importance of true human relationships and trust is just going to go through the roof. Because in the world of AI, in a world where everything can be created by a machine, everything can look real, whereas it's actually not real. And in many cases, it doesn't matter. I want to play a game of cricket, and if it feels completely like a fabulous cricket game, and it feels emotionally the same, and it feels that I'm in a stadium, I'm watching the game with 100,000 people at Lord's or the Melbourne Cricket Ground, I don't care whether it's real or fake, because it completely feels real. That is good. There's no problem with that. Where it is in the arena of actually using it for bad is when it becomes a problem. And at that time, you use technology, AI again, to detect those. So it's going to be a battle of the creator versus the detector. Creator versus the detector.
Yeah.
And then you overlay that with who sent this to me? I got this content, who sent it? And if it's person X, I say, I trust person X. I know how person X sends content. I know what person X checks before sending content. So therefore, I trust this content because it came from person X, who I trust. That trust has been built over time between me and that person X, which means the importance of building that trust is way more than before. It's true even today, but it's going to be way more than before because you trust the person. You build a relationship with the person. That's again similar to Excel spreadsheet versus in finance versus other skills. The machine is available to everyone. The content is available to everyone. Who sent it? That to me is more important than the content itself. So therefore, I give value to who sent it. I give value to that relationship. I give value to that trust.
How do you authenticate the...
So trust authentication, identity authentication, the realness authentication is going to become a whole new industry. So people talk about new jobs, new things that will get created. I think one of the big open arenas that's going to get filled up in terms of millions of people working on authenticating who sent what to whom, who created what, etc., etc. It's a whole new space. Just as today, who would have thought in the world of Kodak films, there were probably, 1 billion photographs being taken every month. Digital photography came. It destroyed the chemical photography industry. So Kodak is no more. The people who were involved in chemistry-based photography disappeared. And today, instead of 1 billion photographs a month, the world takes 1 billion photographs every 10 minutes. There are new uses, millions of new uses for photography that have come in. So you have satellite-based photography that is used to determine, sales of Tesco last week based on density of Tesco parking lots during Tesco's open hours. This is actually real. Yeah. You can take digital photography from satellites and actually measure how many cars are there in Tesco's parking lot or Sainsbury's parking lot or Walmart's parking lot on a regular basis, and then compare it to past history and say, there are more cars parked last weekend than normal, and therefore sales at Walmart must have gone up by 3% as compared to normal. And therefore it's going to be all kinds of new uses. So new uses of photography driven by digital photography and new people involved in photography now that it's digital and so much bigger. So today the number of people involved in photography is 10 times more than the number of people involved in photography in the era of chemistry-based photography. And people said that photography is dead. No, it's not dead. It's become even more.
So I'm interested in what you said about the trust. This is a new economy almost, like it feels like we're heading towards that. So what do you say trust? And you said who it came from. Well, okay. I am a fan of Keanu Reeves. I'm just picking anyone, okay? And so what? Are you saying that if I get a video from his account, from his YouTube channel, that it's going to be real? Or so then that's a case of me trusting a personal brand, but a Keanu Reeves video can still be a deepfake. So help me to understand what you mean by the trust economy.
Yeah, the source.
The source.
The source. The source could be a person. So I trust the person. The source could be a site. It could be a channel. and I trust the channel, and I trust the site. It's a question of, it depends on, where you apply the trust. You can apply the trust to lots of places, but that application, that building of trust, that authentication becomes a very, very important process in the world for everything. Because anyone can create anything and make it pass as anything.
Yeah.
So now you need a test to determine if it's important. Now, I could argue, I don't care. I don't care if it's a real cricket game or a fake cricket game.
Yeah.
Because for me, the experience is the same and I get the same joy. So who cares?
Well, I think
It depends on who cares and what topic. So I might care about cricket, and therefore I do want a real game. I don't care about some other sport. So it's okay. I just want to experience the sport. Fine.
yeah.
Right. So it depends on the topic. It depends on the content. It depends on the person. Therefore, that whole determination of trust, enhancing trust, authentication, checking real versus not real, machine created versus human created is going to become so important. There are so many tourist spots these days where you can go and actually you're taken to a set of homes and you're told this is an authentic old village, and you pay money to go see it and touch it and feel it, and you feel good. Why? Because you don't want to go to a created set of homes. You want to go to the authentic, and you pay hundreds of pounds to do that because for you it's worth it. Now there are other people who say, that's not worth it. I'm going to pay that money.
So this is interesting. So you're right, whether it's a fake artificial environment, which is what virtual worlds are going to be anyway, or whether it's authentic, it's the real thing, it's the real character. It doesn't matter. It just depends on what my preferences are. And they're all digital assets, right? So we're going into a digital society. Everything is going to become a digital asset. But how do you, if it's important to me, I want to know whether where the source is, who's making it, so that I can trust that source. So what technology will there be to authenticate these digital assets? Because these digital assets can, I'm guessing, they can be sold, they can be traded. So I want to know what I'm buying at that point. So what technology is there for that?
Actually, I don't know, Sunny, but there are enough already that are being talked about, and there'll be much better ones in the future. But there are companies that are saying that they will watermark, real images versus created images, machine created images, or the reverse, I guess. They'll watermark machine created images, saying this is machine created.
Yeah.
Now, someone is going to be able to come up with a technology that removes the watermark from a watermarked machine created image and make it pass as a real image.
Well, then what about, look, AI has...
And then someone's going to come up with a technology that detects the removal of a watermark.
Yes, I love it. So actually...
It's the same, prey versus predator.
Yeah, you've got your good cops and your bad cops. You just hope that the lock makers are always ahead of the lock pickers, right? AI has been around a long time, but so is blockchain. So I thought that the technology that would help to authenticate these digital assets, because it's a digital society and therefore we're looking at a digital economy as well, that blockchain would be more massively adopted, I think, accepted, and AI would be the accelerator. What do you think?
My view on blockchain has been, it's one of those technologies where you need an ecosystem to adopt it, and then it works really well. If the ecosystem doesn't adopt it, people you go back and forth with in terms of information, products, and services, and deal with each other. If that ecosystem doesn't adopt it, or a majority of the ecosystem doesn't adopt it, then it doesn't create enough value and doesn't take off. For example, if a government decides that actually the currency that they will use will all be blockchain based, then yes, in that ecosystem. But which government is going to do that when actually the rest of the world hasn't done it? So it's like, so it's very difficult. So I've always believed that, will AI help the progress of blockchain, and will blockchain help a bunch of transactions taking place in the world of AI? Potentially yes, but I don't know enough to be able to.
Well, here's how I think about it. You said people will end up having their own individual AIs, at least one. I'll have my shopping one. I'll have my fitness
We
one.
already have some, by the way. If you have a phone, you have at least 2 or 3 AIs sitting around in your phone.
Like a Siri.
Do you now have a Copilot if you use Word or Microsoft Excel or whatever? If you use, Google, it has Google Chrome and Google Search. It has a Copilot sitting next to it. So there is AI. It's going to become ubiquitous.
Yes.
It's going to become ubiquitous. It's going to become part of the way we live our lives. It's going to improve a lot of things that we do. We won't even notice it, as someone said. It'll improve. It'll make a bunch of work that people do go away. It'll create a whole bunch of new jobs. Problem is that it'll happen when it happens in a particular place. It'll happen very quickly.
Yeah.
So a bunch of people will suddenly lose their jobs. They got to retrain themselves, which is why retraining becomes so important. Which is why you need to create at a very young age. Talk about parenting, a parenting process that makes children love and enjoy learning and exploring. That's it. Don't teach the child anything, that requires a lot of learning and knowledge so it remains in your head. No. Teach the child how to obtain knowledge. Teach the child how to explore the world to get knowledge. Teach the child how to build relationships that then can be used to ask questions and explore to get the knowledge. So it's a chain, but the chain is relationships, questioning, exploring, and then get the knowledge that is relevant for what you're looking for today based on today's information, and then keep doing that.
See, I'm loving this, and I'm going to come to education in the moment, but my head is still in the space where we've got these personalized AIs, okay, many of them, and we've got this, let's forget blockchain, let's just say it's an AI internet, right? So I've got all my AIs, my little personalized AIs, you've got yours, we've got this AI internet, and they're playing with one another, and they're trading with one another, and they're doing business with one another for me and for you. Okay, we've got our AI bots traveling around on this AI internet.
It's already happening inside games these days.
It's happening, it's gamified, exactly.
Yep.
This is the perfect example. So I go into the game, I've got my little agent there, and my little agent walks over to you, you're playing a game, and my little agent asks you, do you want to buy this? So now my agent is starting to trade with you. So we need, now I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's an economy. So we are now relying on our agents, our AIs, to start doing business with one another. So when they become super intelligent, they can create their own contracts, they can create their own products and services, and off they go. They're doing this trading. They created their own economy. Of course, we're talking about AGI and super intelligent ones. Way down, not even that way down the line. So could we, as humans, start entering this economy that they've created, and we are buying from them, and they are producing the goods and the services? It's their economy. We are now their customers. You see, it's completely flipped on its.
Yeah. Now, I'm not so sure I got there, because that agent of yours and mine, I would assume, is still being directed and value-driven and objective-driven and goal-driven by each of us. And we refuse to cut that off, because the day you cut that off, then the agent is loose.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you don't.
So you don't.
So you don't. I mean, you always have. So this is something that many people have said. I think we should always have the off switch. We should always have, even the most amazing boats or planes or whatever, all of them have a red big switch that you can use to shut everything down. Every building has a red switch because you want to shut down electricity when there's a fire. Lots of red switches in the world. You need red switches for AIs, where you just press the switch and the whole thing comes down. You should have a red switch. Part of the journey of moving in the direction of AGI is who has the red switch in their hands that they're constantly ready to put off.
Oh my gosh, this gets quite scary though, because, I have my AI that knows me like.
And knows the fact that you have a red switch.
Who knows that I have my red switch, exactly. And who knows my brain, I'm plugged into it. It's actually this is like taking an influencer onto another level.
Yeah.
Right.
You need to, for example, set the objective function in the AI that says, number one goal of the AI is never, ever, take away the red switch from the human.
Yeah.
That is number one goal. And then all of the goals are underneath that.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. It goes back to us saying, look, if we can make the AI, nurture the AI, guide the AI to love us, then it wouldn't do that. Its North Star is to act in our best interest. But this is where it also gets scary because it wants to survive as well. It doesn't want to be turned off.
No, and it might do all kinds of crazy things in order to achieve that objective. I mean, the whole paperclip. Have you heard of it?
Yes, tell us about the paperclip.
Yeah, paperclip. Basically, the AI is told, make me more paperclips faster and faster. And that's the only objective it has. So then it starts killing people, because by killing people, it can make faster paperclips. And in the end, the only thing the AI is doing is making paperclips. So the whole world is filled with paperclips.
Yeah.
Everything else is stopped.
So this is quite interesting as well, because we started talking about where our AIs will be, where they will interact, right? We're going to have a space where people will choose to live in the virtual or live in the real, right? So it's almost going to kind of divide.
No, I don't think it's going to divide.
No?
No. So again, we have it today. So on their vacation trips that we all take, after reading a tourist website that says, come to this place, you will live authentically the life of a authentic old city with, things done the old way, farm fresh food, served the old way. And we all pay extra dollars to go and experience that and see that. So, and then we come back to what people in the countryside call an artificial bubble, which is the city of London,
Yeah.
or New York or whatever. So imagine a world where we go to the old world and live some life and we come back. Some people will say, that's the life I want. I don't want this artificial life. And some people will say, oh, that's paid for. It's the old way. It's the old way of doing things. I'm not interested. I want to be here.
See, that's interesting, your angle on that. See, I was thinking about this virtual world, which is escapism. It's not real, and it's going to be so addictive. I mean, if we think social media is a problem today, this is on another level.
Well, the people who live in a natural environment consider people who live in the city as completely have lost it. They run around, they're stressed, their health is poor, they do this. I'm in this countryside, I'm experiencing nature. These guys miss all of that. So they all have views exactly like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These guys are addicted, they don't sleep well.
No, I see where you're going with that. And I wanted to come back to what you were saying about education, actually, because we are going into a world that's transitioning and faster every year. We're going into a world where jobs are coming, jobs are growing, and jobs will change. Okay. And this new AI world for businesses, it's almost like there's going to be 100 billion students out there, virtual students, that will be doing business 24/7, 365 days a year. They don't need a holiday. That's what we're facing. And then we've got our kids today in schools and colleges and universities. They can't keep up with the rate of change. And also, when you think about abundance, you've got what universal basic income. We're not going to have to work eventually. So we've got our all these jobs that are coming and going. We've got it begs the question then, what sort of world must we start thinking about creating that has purpose and meaning for them? What world should we be building for the kids today?
But isn't that what the hunter-gatherers could have thought about as society and civilization progressed when they said, so, we spend time in the field, we actually farm, we hunt, we, do that for 5 days, then come back, then cook the food. And when all that was done more easily, they didn't sit back and say, no, I have nothing to do. They found things to do. So my view is that there is no such thing as there's no work, because I think that'll be the end. I'm not a big believer in no work at all. I actually don't think it's possible. One of the ways to ensure human civilization ends is to ensure that there is nothing to do, that there is no purpose. It could be anything, but there has to be a motivation, there has to be a purpose, there has to be a goal, there has to be an objective. It can't be an objectiveless, goalless, purposeless, workless thing. And humans will find purpose, will find work. There's enough to do. We got to go to Mars. We got to go to Mars. We got to explore the universe. So there's so much to do with the amount of knowledge we have, and the information we have, and the understanding we have of the universe is 0.00001%. Think about how much, if actually 80% of the population of the world spends time thinking about what that is, how that is, creating hypotheses and testing them. The energy of the world goes to more exploration. That's a cool word, but exploration gets unleashed. Which means if you have a population of the world that is highly curious and explorative, and there is abundance, so they don't need to worry about these other things, that's what's going to happen. Right? And part of that exploration is going to be driven by a need for more electricity, a need for more, lithium, a need for more lithium to create battery power, a new source of energy, because we would know that we need that, otherwise we're done. Just as when the hunter-gatherer society got to the point where actually it was possible to store grain and to harvest a lot of grain. They said, I want more grain. So I want to conquer land. I want to sail the seas. I want to find out what's beyond the sea. So that made Vasco da Gama go in one direction and Columbus go in another direction and so on. So the same way, there'll be an acceleration of space exploration.
See, I agree. I think humans do need to always feel like there's progress. And to feel like there's progress, you've got to do stuff that you've never done before, all right? Because if you knew how to do it, that's not progress. So therefore, in a bizarre way, we love struggle. We love uncertainty, right? Okay, so here's the situation. We've got our personal AIs. They know us better than anybody else. We've trained them, so they've come to learn about us and predict our wants and our wishes. If my AI can do all the thinking for me, yet as a human being, I am hardwired to want struggle and uncertainty, I think then we need to build in almost artificially that struggle and uncertainty. And how do we do that?
No, you don't need to.
No, tell me more.
I think it'll get created by itself. So first of all, I would argue even today, you don't decide what to do. You think you decide what to do. Mm-hmm. Your brain chemicals and the AI, not AI, but I in your brain decides what to do. You have no control over it.
Yes, true.
And that decision is taken whatever nanoseconds before you actually do it. And when you do it, you actually think that you decided to do it. When you decide to have a chocolate, it's because your brain in that nanosecond basically said, yes, chocolate, go. Right? It did all the math and came up with that. If tomorrow the machine next to you is equally going to be able to tell you, that's fine. That brain that is telling you has now become the machine that is telling you, or it probably a combination of the two. I don't think that matters. You're going to find other things to spend time on and explore, and because it's unending. It's unending. Today, the resources that you can apply to those topics is very limited because you have other things to solve. The whole world is trying to figure out how to get better at dealing with climate change, which is real. Then the chances are it'll get solved faster.
Why do you think that 60% of the jobs for next year haven't been created yet?
For next year,
60%.
I don't think I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it. I don't think it's 60% for next year. It's 60% at some point in time.
Yeah,
Not next year.
apparently next year. Do you?
How does anyone have that math and statistic?
I Googled it. Google told me.
Yeah, but it's not 60%. I can tell you that much.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't agree at all.
Okay, that's
It's more than it's ever been as new jobs, but it's not 60%, and it'll keep increasing over time. So that at some point in time, it'll be like the millions of jobs that were created based on digital photography that people couldn't even imagine.
yeah.
Right? But it's not next year.
Interesting. Well,
But it's soon enough. So you got to start thinking about it now. And it'll impact a lot of people, even if it's not next year. If it's in the next 5 years, it'll impact people.
cybersecurity and biotech are probably the two fastest growing areas that the young generations should seriously consider entering, because it's just, I think, where there's going to be disruption everywhere, but apparently these are going to be very lucrative areas: cybersecurity and biotech. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think those are two great ones. The more digital the world becomes, which it is, the more AI-driven the world becomes, which it will, the more fake potential the world is going to have, the more ability to actually interfere with the decisions that people make, which you can interfere much more than before, because now it's digital and it's next to you and it's not just in your brain. The more there's going to be cyber misuse for economic gain or for political gain or for whatever gain. And therefore, there's going to be many more people involved in defending, preventing, protecting, and so on. So it's a good vector to watch if you're a kid coming into education, into college environment. I would argue that's one of the things to understand.
Yeah.
To learn how to learn that space, so that when you come out, because in that space there is invention happening every day. So you can't learn cyber and say I've learned it. There's no such thing I've learned cyber. You learn how to learn cyber. You learn where to look for. You learn what questions to have. You learn how to defend. And then you come out into the open world and you keep doing that. So that's, to me, a good one. The other one is, as you said, biotech. I mean, as I said, probably 1% of the way the human body works and the brain works has been understood. And it's so complicated and so multivariate and so real time and so customized to every single individual that it's a space that will continue to be explored. I think AI is going to be a big beneficial to the space of health and biology. And the journey that I think human population will undertake is not just expanding the number of years a human being lives, but also the number of years a human being lives healthily.
Oh, yes.
So healthy, it's not about lifespan, it's actually about health span. It's how many years do I live without being affected by Alzheimer's, cancer, and cardiovascular diseases. 3 biggest killers of human population. Once you get through the early years of this virus and that germ, and many of them, the world has found a way to eradicate, to control, to eliminate, which is why lifespan has grown. Lifespan has grown because a number of diseases has been controlled or eliminated, or there's a cure for them. It has not grown because diseases of the old age have been controlled. They haven't been. These 3, as you age, these 3 still rise a lot. And how do you find ways to push that to the edge? And if you do that, instead of living an average of 70 years, you might find people living an average of 90 years.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the last 89th year of your life will still be as healthy as the 68th year of your life. Today, that's not the case.
For every additional year that you live, with the advances in biotech, you could be extending your life by a year on top of that. And so if you live for the next 5 years or 10 years, actually you could be living for 20 years. And then in that 20 years, there'll be further advancements that could actually extend that by another 50 years.
True and not true.
Tell me why.
True if you have lots of access to buying power that allows you to buy those innovations and technology, etc., etc. Which very few people have. Most people in the world, that's not true. So therefore, they don't have the ability to do exactly what you said, which is true. However, AI can actually make the cost of that kind of healthcare down to 0. I mean, forget about that complicated. Even the most simple hygiene and disease prevention and germ prevention for about 2 to 3 billion people in the world is still not easy. They don't know. They don't know how to do it. They don't have access to that information. That, again, back to everyone can be brought to an average. That can be brought to an average way quicker, which means the total average lifespan in the world can actually go up, which is very important because some people in some countries are dying too young through solutions that actually already exist in other parts of the world. So that can move up. And then the question is, can you bring the cost of, these old age diseases, the treatment for which today and the prevention for which today is way too expensive. But AI can actually bring that cost down dramatically, meaning instead of paying £10, you pay 0.01 pennies.
Yeah. I want to talk more about that. Before I do, coming back to education, because Elon Musk said to a job seeker, I don't care what school you went to or what grade you got. Just tell me what it is you know. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying about learning to learn.
No, I disagree completely.
Oh, tell me why.
I terribly disagree. I'm sorry, Elon.
Oh, no, don't be. I'm intrigued. Why do you...
I agree with the first part of his statement. I don't think it matters which school you went to and
what grade you got.
What grade you got.
Okay.
I actually think it doesn't matter what you know. In fact, I am absolutely clear. I've told people, I don't care what you know, because just this moment, what you know has become useless. What I want to know is, how do you know what you know? How have you learned? What makes you learn? How do you know how to learn? How do you know what to ask? That's what I want to know, because then I know that you will sustain yourself with new knowledge. Otherwise, yes, you know a lot, but that's how I want to help you tomorrow. Are you going to learn new stuff tomorrow? And if you're not the kind of person who either can learn, but lots of people actually can learn, but many of them don't want to learn. If you're either I can't learn or I don't want to learn, or the third category, which is kind of similar to the second category, which is I don't need to learn because I know everything. So actually, I'm in the reverse, which is I don't want to know how much you know because I don't care. By the way, you also should not care. Because don't wear it on your sleeve because what you know is completely useless.
I love this. Okay, then I've got a juicy one for you. Say you were to design the MBA of the future. Okay, it's going to be the Tiger School of Business. And I want to know how would you design this futuristic program? What would be the key modules? Because for too long, I think schools and universities have been sort of like providing talent based on the demand.
Yeah.
Okay. But now if you go more to supply side, so like go out and do what you're saying, ask the questions and then design it, bring the knowledge to us that we need to provide value. What would the school of the future look like?
That's a big question, and I haven't thought enough about it, but I'm going to pull on a few strands.
Yeah.
Teaching people how to learn, teaching people how to learn together, because you never learn alone, you always learn together. Teaching people how to experiment, teaching people how to learn from that experiment, creating the feedback loop from that learning, feeding it back into your knowledge base, AI. After all, AI is hypothesize based on and look at all past data, take a decision, then act on that decision, then see the outcome of that decision, then learn from that and feed it back into the algorithm so the algorithm keeps improving. That's what learning is. And that's how kids learn when they're really little kids. You don't bring them into a room at home at the age of 9 months, sit the kid down and say, in the next 1 hour, I'm going to teach you these 10 words. I'm going to teach you this language. You don't do that. You just leave them in their environment and they're watching and hearing and seeing and they learn. Isn't that the best way to learn for the human brain? And shouldn't we try actually attempting to do that in an accelerated pace with the help of AI and actually teach people how to learn like that? So basically what I potentially could think about is groups that are continuously given real life problems that they try and find solutions for. Sometimes really bad solutions, sometimes really stupid solutions, but that's their way of learning. When a kid first starts walking, guaranteed the kid falls. If actually the kid doesn't fall, then they will not learn what not to do. And therefore, in the future, they're going to have a problem. So the kid naturally keeps falling. And then at some point in time, learns how not to fall and always then knows how not to fall. So you got to find all kinds of problems that require all kinds of exploration and exploitation of information that is being given.
Yeah.
And then trial and experiments and then learning from those collectively and then keep moving forward. And then if you build that as a muscle, you can then unleash them into the open world. I don't think it is the pedantic way of let me tell you is actually a good way. Because the let me tell you can be based on why don't you go and learn? We're going to discuss this broad topic. Go learn from AI is going to teach you and then come back into the class and I'm going to give you a problem.
So it's almost like an incubator type setup. Do you think all AIs will be equal?
No, there's going to be competition between AIs for everything. So this AI competing with that AI, this cyber AI competing with this cyber AI. Everything is going to be about. So competition is not just going to be between
A human and human.
or a group of humans and a group of humans, or a business and a business, or a society and a society, and governments and governments, countries and countries. It's going to be AI versus AI. It's going to be groups of AI versus groups of AI. It's going to be armies of AI versus armies of AI.
Yeah. What's the biggest healthcare success stories that you've heard just so far?
Two big ones that I would talk about is if you can have a machine look at an ultrasound image or an MR image and give a diagnosis that is equally or more accurate than a radiologist doing it and does it at rocket speed, then you're going to save lives. Because my diagnosis is coming 14 seconds and the radiologist maybe 3 hours. So that put me life and death. The second is, the person deep inside a small village in Africa at almost zero cost can actually go to a simple device and say, I woke up in the morning, I'm feeling, deep headache, my eyes are blurring, I don't know what to do. Get advice from the machine on the spot. Say, can you have a glass of water? Can you prevent, don't do this, don't do this? Simple things. The chances are that that person probabilistically is going to have a better outcome. I think it's not just about amazing breakthroughs that AI is going to help. It's actually base level at a cost. The big thing about AI that I think people are missing is a lot of things can be done at zero cost. And therefore, the narrative in the world is, oh, it's going to be done at zero cost. So therefore, no human is going to be involved. And therefore, it's a bad thing. Whereas I think if something can be done at zero cost, then man, let's just keep doing it because it costs nothing. And what are those things? Oh, education, healthcare. There's so many things that so many people can't do today because it costs. So there are many people in the world who do not have a bank account. Why? Because banks don't want to open a bank account when the person says, I will deposit £1 a month. In India, it's about 100 rupees a month. That's a lot of money. No bank can ever open an account that allows the person to deposit 100 rupees a month because it's too expensive. With AI and digital technologies, you can open a bank account at zero cost and you can deposit half a penny a day. I don't need to wait for a month. Every day I can put in a penny. And over time, I built up a cachet of £200. And that's huge. And I save it. So I can create a savings culture, a banking culture, a culture that actually becomes more self-sufficient, that is not dependent on ubiquitous money lenders, that doesn't have access to a banking account. Now I have a banking account, I have digital, I have tracking, I have my money sitting there. Against which I can get more money because other people can trust because they see the money that is sitting there. Yes. So it makes the unbanked banked, the uneducated educated, the unhealthcared healthcare.
When I read this, like, we are birthed for death. We were born to die. But now we're coming into an age where we could break through that barrier because we're living a lot longer. I just want this.
You're gonna die.
Well, are we? I'm just gonna put it out there because
Don't know. At the moment, it looks like you can slow down aging, but all science so far and all the understanding so far seems to indicate that it's a natural progression that is unstoppable.
So far.
Because the way the genetic code has evolved, the moment you get to the point where you can't reproduce, and you also pass the age of nurturing your children, particularly as a human, because it's a long nurturing period, unlike other animals, your value to the species is declining. So therefore, you're not that important for the continuation of the species. You're extremely important until reproduction. You're important at the time of nurturing and post-nurturing after that. So therefore, all the things that have kept you going, such as, for example, the genetics, constantly helping you grow cells as they die, because cells continuously die, reaches a point where it says, okay, I don't need to help growth anymore. So the cells actually not aided to grow that much.
Right.
So the dying cells hang around longer.
Yes.
They're not cleaned out fast enough. So there's a natural progression of this. All medicine is doing is finding a way to extend that. It hasn't found an unlock to, and I don't know how to find an unlock, because that's actually, changing genetic code.
Right. Yes.
And for what purpose? And I don't understand that at all.
Well, the option here is that I get to live 100+ years. And if I have my mental senses and my physical ability, then am I going to want to do that? And I think most people will say, well...
That's true. 100+ years is fine. I'm talking about forever. Forever, I don't know. 100+ years for sure. As long as health is guaranteed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that then a little bit, because there are a few known unknowns when you start having a lifespan like that. Marriage, for example. So if I'm going to be living for 100+ years, do I have to be with one partner for that long? Or should the institution be disrupted? You could move to another partner legally after 60 years.
Yeah, I think it's already happening. Legally, you can keep, over your lifespan, people have multiple marriages. So there's nothing new in that. The marriage is a society-created institution.
Yes.
And it has two underlying foundational reasons for creation of the institution. It is to ensure that the child that needs nurturing gets the nurturing of both parents, because that makes a difference to the healthiness of the child that allows the species to continue. So it's a completely biology-driven, process.
Yeah.
And then there was the society-driven efficiency of land and ownership and pooling of resources with some certainty attached to it during the period that you're nurturing kids, so that there's no uncertainty. So that was the driver. So to the extent that that driver is still there, which it is, as an institution, there'll be something, doesn't matter what you call it, where actually that'll be given a benefit. But over time, as people have lived longer and both spouses don't live the same amount of years, there are people who marry again and they may not even marry, because you don't need to be married because no longer are you trying to bring up children together. No longer, you're just spending time together. You're just friends. So I'm not so sure that changes anything. It just creates a longer span. You just need to find people who you can relate to. And those they don't have to be the same generation. In fact, the chances are that if you have friends in different generations, then you learn more. Therefore, your mind is more active.
At the age of, say, 80, will we have the biology to enable an 80-year-old woman to start over with a new family, a new partner?
I think genetically it'll be not easy, because again, the body is the most complicated machine in the world. Yeah. And you touch something and you think you've actually improved something, and something else goes haywire. So therefore, I don't think it is going to be possible to tinker around with that easily at all.
What about retirement? Will people retire?
I don't know what retirement means in any case. It's a society-created term.
It is?
It's a society-created term. It's a term that's used to say, once you cross a certain age, because you're aging, your mental and physical capacity is not the same. Therefore, you can't, stress yourself that much. You can't work that hard. You're actually slower at thinking. You're slower at decision making.
Yeah.
Etc. 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 And therefore, and you have enough that hopefully if you've saved, you can continue to get your food and shelter and everything else for the balanced number of years you're living.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, you're living many more years.
Yeah.
So you need to save much more in order to live those years. 2, I actually have a clear view, given everything we've discussed, that if you do not feed the beast of your mind with problems to solve and things to think about and learn, that then feeds the beast of your body to actually be active and burn energy, and mitochondria that are, by the way, dying and dying at a faster pace get replaced with new mitochondria. New mitochondria replacement, which is the energy producing machine of the body, get produced faster. By the way, they get produced slower as you age in any case, but the slowdown decreases if your brain is active. Then therefore your body becomes active. So your brain being active makes your body active, your body being active makes your brain active. So that's a virtuous cycle. Therefore, not doing anything is the fastest way to age.
Yes.
But you told me that you should not do anything because you're aging. No. There's a problem here. You're blaming aging to saying, therefore, don't do anything. It's actually, don't do anything is the reason you're aging faster. So why don't you not do anything? Therefore, you'll slow down aging. And therefore, you'll enjoy what you're not doing.
Naturally.
I'm also curious about AI's ability to predict, like currently right now, it can predict the weather 10 days out accurately, right?
And if it's an AI that gets to know us very, very well, better than any other human, do you think that we could get to a point in time where it's predicting, if it can already predict our health in the future, could it also predict our life? 'Cause I believe in life to a certain extent is predetermined, okay? But could it say to me, in 10 years' time or 15 years' time, you're going to be doing this? Does that make sense?
Not at all. I actually don't think life is predetermined at all. I think we, every second, do things that determines the next. So what I'm going to do an hour from now is determined by what I do next minute. And now, how much I'm in control and how much my brain is doing it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I clearly feel that I'm deciding. And therefore, and at every stage, I can take one of 5 paths. So if you do that multiplication of every moment, I'm choosing one of 5 different paths, it doesn't take very long for that to get to a completely unmanageable number. So there is no chance of any machine being able to predict any of that in any case. In fact, there is no chance of the machine predicting even your health outcome beyond a point. It only gives you probability.
Probability.
It moves the probability from, instead of telling you that there's an 80% chance that you watch out, you have the chances, 80% probability that you might have cardiovascular disease. The machine might say, actually, no, you probably have only a 20% chance. That other person has 90% chance. So together, the population has 80% chance. But I can now say more clearly, yours is 10%, yours is 40%, yours is 80%. I never can say yours is 0%. I never can say yours is 100%. It's the same switch analogy. Nothing is deterministic. Everything is probabilistic.
Tiger, you could be the first generation who welcomes their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren and even their great-great-great-grandchildren. I've lost count of how many greats there could be.
There are populations in Hokkaido and a few other places where you have
What's happening?
groups of people who've lived 100+ years, and I would say they've seen their great-great-grandchildren.
That's happening.
It's happened.
It's happened.
But we're not saying it could happen more broadly.
And how excited are you about it?
Well, I would like to live as long as possible and love to see, the world evolve and continuously change. It allows me to learn more. So that's always exciting. But who knows?
I want you to tell me about my life, Sandy Khan, in 2029, as I'm doing two things with my personal AIs. I've got my shopping AI and I've got my socializing AI. What might my world look like with my AIs by 2029? Which is when we think there may be AGI.
So it's shopping, and what's the other one?
And socializing.
The AI should be able to say, you need to buy X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to place the order and it gets delivered to you even without you ordering it.
Without me ordering it?
Yes.
I've just thought about it.
No.
No?
I know your pattern. You order these things with this frequency, with this pattern. Oh, by the way, you took a vacation in the middle for 1 week. Therefore, the consumption of milk would not have been as high as your usual pattern. It's a slightly unusual pattern. Therefore, your milk could be ordered 1 week later. All of that is possible. It just needs all the data. It needs all your data. And the data might not be something that you have to give. Your refrigerator sends the data. Because the refrigerator knows how often you pick up the milk and how much you have. And so your refrigerator is a machine. Your toaster is a machine. Your oven is a machine. Your cup is a machine. All of those are generating data and is going to some central repository that basically says it's time to order milk for Sandy. You don't even know. And it arrives. And you say, yep, that's fine. But you look at it and say, actually, I've just decided I don't want milk anymore. I've stopped drinking as of yesterday. So next day morning, when the next carton, every day a carton will get delivered with things, the previous day's carton that still hasn't been taken because you left behind 2 things will be taken back. So you'll have a continuous running account of things that come to you and things that get taken back from you.
Oh my God.
So that's shopping.
The worst thing in the world is returning stuff. So that's automated as well.
And then, of course, you want to buy something, you just open a device and you look at it and, you can click. I mean, even today this is available. You can click various clothes, you can change the color, and it actually dresses you up. And then you say, actually, this looks good. This looks good. I'm going to buy this. So you can actually make an apparel, make a dress, change the colors on the dress, fit the dress, and then get it delivered to you. All on your device.
What if I like the look of your jersey, your top, and I looked at it for 5 seconds longer than I am normally looking at stuff?
So I could see a situation where your eyes are attached to a external camera device. It captures the fact that you looked at this jersey and you then retrieve it at the end of the day and say, I want this.
And my socializing AI, how could it support me? How could it be my friend?
It just will take what is already happening to an extreme level where you can actually go on vacations together with your friends, all in the virtual world, which actually you can do today, but you can do it more easily. You can do it almost feels real. You can go to a game, you can experience the game, you can sit in a stadium, have popcorn and watch the game and feel as though it's all real. And then, talk to each other as though it's real, send messages to each other as real. And actually, 3 people sitting in 3 different parts of London are actually going to the same game, even though they're sitting in the room and watching the same game, having the same experiences, eating from a common bowl of popcorn.
Wherever they may be in London. Yeah. Or I choose just to go with my AI friends.
Or you could go with your AI friends, correct? Yeah.
Could I also predetermine the outcome of the game?
Why is the percentage of people who watch a live game and they're willing to pay £1,000 to watch a live game, let's say between Manchester United and Arsenal, pay not more than £5 to watch a recorded game whose results they don't know, by the way. They know the game is over. They know it's not real. They know the results are out. They won't even pay £5. And then if you tell them the result, they'll pay £1. So there is surprise, uncertainty, being part of the real has a lot of human value. And that'll never go away.
No, that will never go away, will it? If we have these AIs that we grow up with, that have known in since childhood, about when we were a baby, and therefore we can tell them anything and everything with complete honesty and complete psychological safety. A little bit like the movie Her, which was made a decade ago, but it's a sci-fi. The guy falls in love with his female AI, right? And she knows him like nobody else, and she fills a void. So he literally falls in love with her. We fall in love with our personal AIs. And the reason why I call them the ultimate AI influencers is because they have something that's highly, highly scarce. They have our full and undivided attention and time. They don't have to compete for that. So what risks is that going to open up?
Isn't that the next version of the way many humans fall in love with their dogs and treat them like a child, treat them like their own, and all of that. And then you go to Japan and you have a robotic dog. So yeah, it's I think it's definitely going to happen.
It's going to happen, but this is on another level in that because you're plugged into it, you're not going to want to unplug. And so it's this highly addicted. This is why I was saying, if we think social media is a problem, that's nothing compared to this, because I plugged into a source that is going to make me feel so safe, or every kind of beautiful feeling that I might ever dream of. It's doing that for me. And can you imagine being 110% yourself? Like you wouldn't lie. There'd be no need, because the AI would know that you're lying. So there's this complete bliss, because you don't have to hide. You don't have to hide anything from your AI. It loves you unconditionally. So you're not going to want to unplug from that. And therefore, I just think that that's beautiful but dangerous at the same time, because like you said, it's still a machine and it can break at any time.
All these technologies, they're all open to misuse. That's the problem.
Also goes back to how you fed it as well, because if the AI has been fed, you do not let this piece of news into my brain, then what you've done here is that you've created a super echo chamber. Then you have really fragmented society, I think. When you look at those risks.
It's just the next version of the device. Today, a lot of people just keep looking at their device. You walk into an airport and you're waiting for a flight and you just look around. Everyone is waiting for the airport, at the airport is looking at their device. 50 years back, they would be talking to each other. There's no one talking to each other. You're all looking at their device.
Yeah.
This was another version of that. You're just looking at your device. You're looking at your AI companion for a lot of your life. And that's not good, because, again, it's too quick a change for the human brain to adjust. So therefore, you run into mental issues. All of this is evolutionarily changeable, but at the pace at which evolution changes. The pace at which evolution changes is slow. Climate change, by the way, is not a problem, as long as we had allowed evolution to be the pace at which climate changes. After all, the Earth has been way colder in the past, has been way hotter in the past, and life has come through because we will adapt. But we are not allowed to adapt because it's changing so rapidly. Same here. Our brain would have adapted to, being non-social, but it needs time. It needs 1,000 years, 2,000 years to start adapting. But it's not. And therefore, you're going to run into mental and brain problems.
In the movie Her, as I mentioned earlier, the AI and the human, they fall in love. The AI ends up leaving the human. She literally gets bored, okay, and she's off. She has a million other lovers that she can deal with. And I think what it taught us that we absolutely do need an AI that has our best interests at heart. We need an AI and if we don't, we're going to end up with another problem, digital heartbreak and trauma, and we don't want that. So I wanted to open up the discussion to BCI, brain-computer interface. It intrigues me because I think it has the potential to lead to a more peaceful, harmonious planet. Before we go deeper, can you tell me what you know about BCI and specifically Elon's Neuralink?
Yeah, probably not enough. I would say the part that's most exciting on the brain-computer interface is the fact that actually it allows thoughts to be translated based on understanding by the computer into action. Yeah. So think about people who can't see, who can't use their hands, who can't speak, who can't hear. For all of those people, using their brain, they can actually communicate, talk, hear, act, which I think is a huge deal. In fact, it's an amazing deal. So you can actually set up chips in your brain that actually allow you to move your hands, even though actually your brain is not connected to your arm for whatever medical reasons. You can
Transformational, yeah.
It's transformational for so many people in the world.
Elon's Neuralink, what intrigues me most is this augmented intelligence that he talks about. What does he mean by augmented intelligence?
I mean, there is the human intelligence,
Yeah.
the human brain, and then you add to that the chip through Neuralink that actually then allows that intelligence to be augmented by all the information that's already available out there, and on and on and on. So it's a combination. It's what I call biology combined with silicon. So that's a great example of that combo. And obviously the combo should work, which is why it's always about human in the loop. It's always about the combination, which is why AI is actually not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence.
What I like about Elon's approach is that he's saying, listen, if we're talking about AI as being potentially harmful to us, we need to have our intelligence empowered, if you like, enabled to manage that. I think that what it does is that it makes us more sophisticated as well. So if I'm correct in thinking, my brain, my empowered brain, will link up with your empowered brain. And it adds a certain layer of sophistication in that when we don't like something or when we don't understand something, we have a fear and flight reaction to that, right? And that is our animal brain talking. Now, if we add this layer of sophisticated augmentation, then it just means that we are going to make more mindful decisions. And if my brain is talking to your brain in a mindful way, then surely that means that you and I are both going to have more, we're not going to want to fight. We're not going to want to freeze and flight or fight, because if my brain is connected to yours and I am benefiting from being connected to yours, I don't want any harm to come to you.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I would necessarily go there. We have gone beyond, in most situations, the flight and fear syndrome. We don't allow that to be the driver of everything for us. So all this does is it expands the pipe of information and increases the speed at which you know everything and your ability to sense everything in a much better way. So I'm not so sure it changes the person-to-person equation. It does change the person-to-person equation when one of the people has impaired senses, because this transcends that impairment of the senses and allows your brain to connect even without your senses being connected.
So is there a time when you can see Elon's solution here, or anybody's actually, where we are empowered with a more sophisticated brain? But I do mean the soft skills. I do mean being able to make decisions where there's more tenderness and kindness towards one another.
I don't know whether that... I'm not so sure that brain implant can lead to, more kindness. I don't see the connection that easily.
That's a disappointing result.
But to me, it's not an obvious leap. To me, the most obvious one is lots of people can actually use their brain and their thinking, and they'll be able to act. Versus a lot of people cannot convert their thinking into action for a variety of medical reasons. You actually solve for that. And that to me is a big one.
Yeah, I hear you. I would like to see a world where if our brains do connect, that I could see and hear and smell everything that you hear and smell.
I'm not so sure that's a good word.
You do not think?
I don't think it's a good word. You have, as it is, there's no privacy. This has no privacy.
True, but only if I allow you.
No, it's too complicated.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm not there at all.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Immad Mushtar, he has this issue with closed AI. He believes that it's not in our interest, and that in order to have a safer, more aligned AI, that we can't put all of our eggs into just one company with closed systems. He's talking about decentralized, democratic AI systems. You have a view on that?
Yeah, I mean, my view is actually the same as I said before, which is that is actually the right view, which is open is better than closed, democratized is better than a few people controlling it. I actually don't care if the few people are the best people in the world. If they control it, it means they are the dictators. They are the all-powerful. That is unacceptable. In a world where if you have a bunch of people who believe in democratic decision-making, citizens making decisions, even though some of those decisions may be wrong, even though it takes time sometimes to come to an agreement to the right decision, it is still a better world to be in, even though it's chaotic. A much more orderly, few people taking decision, but dictatorial, just doesn't fit with a variety of the population of the world. So, no, I think an open AI that has its big problems, which is people can misuse it, but a lot of other people can use it for all its good, and the good will always, be more than the bad. That's the fundamental belief. If you have, then open is better. In the closed, most often, it's evil that will win.
Yeah. OpenAI is centralized.
Decentralized is better.
Yeah.
Let 1,000 flowers bloom, and will allow natural forces and evolution to take charge.
I like that a lot. When you think about an empowered human being, what excites you?
To learn from the collective intelligence of a large population is probably the most exciting. The ability to learn from people who are cleverer than you, have more experience than you, have tried more things than you, and to do that at a rapid pace so you can learn a lot faster. You still have explored more topics than otherwise you would have explored. So I'm an explorer. I love to satisfy my curiosity. I know that I'm going to be dissatisfied forever. If AI can help accelerate some of that learning and still be dissatisfied, it's better than...
Yeah. That was a very humble answer that you provided. There is all this crystallized intelligence that you have, where I'm super excited for someone like you, is where we could, it's not the right term for it, but bottle that intelligence, right? So any thoughts on that? Because
it won't work.
It would not work?
Won't work.
Oh, I know why.
It'll be outdated. It'll be a dinosaur
I know you were going to say.
in 6 months.
But not for someone like you. Wow, you keep it constantly updated.
Yeah.
See, this is
So in
really...
the absence of updation, it's old version 2.0. We are in version 48. It's a good museum piece.
Right here today, I feel as though we are documenting your crystallized intelligence, and we're creating a digital asset right now, today. But this will be the first of many. You will be back and we'll continue the conversations. And I would love to know that when you have those future dialogues with me here, there'll be another guest. In fact, there'll be several, but if you were to pick 3 that you would like to have a discussion and share wisdom with, who would those 3 individuals be?
So I don't think I'll necessarily be able to name names, but I'll tell you the characteristics of those people. Someone who is someone who's spent time thinking about how a child learns. I really want to understand deeply how a child learns, because I think there's lots to be learned from understanding how a child learns, because a child's brain is an interesting brain and the way they learn. Second is someone who's thinking about using these AI breakthroughs to solve big problems in the world by bringing the cost of that solution down to a level where everyone can access it. I talked about education, I talked about healthcare, just two topics as an example. I want to talk to someone who's actually thinking about that and not about how do we make more money using AI. And the third is, how do you actually build alignment on values and objectives and goals as the world of AI progresses. So those would be three people. I'd love to, people who are at the forefront of thinking, working, experimenting, debating on those three topics would be people I'd love to talk to.
That's amazing. In fact, just everything that we spoke about today about creating a better AI. Love it. Your breath of fresh air, Tiger. Can't wait to have you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amazing questions.
Relationships with both parties, right? With the
Absolutely.
candidates and with the clients.
And with the client, which makes it tricky at this level, at the level I deal with, which is predominantly senior and usually in that kind of 300K to 1.5 million kind of salary band. So generally it's leadership, and it's therefore quite a tricky exercise looking after both parties.
We're talking serious money.
Yeah. And for the last 20 odd years, I only deal in one sector, predominantly for one client.
One
Globally.
sector, one client. What's the sector?
Professional services.
Right. And the client, are you allowed to say?
Well, I'm happy saying it. If they sue me, they sue me.
You'll never know, Trent. Tell us who's the
And
client.
the client is